So welcome back to the Expert Edge. Today's conversation is transformational. I tell you what, 2025 is going to be an amazing year if this is the benchmark that we are setting. I have got a dear friend. Her name is Cathy Heller. You may have heard of her, but she has had 50 million downloads on her podcast. And she is an expert when it comes to creating an abundant life. She is a spiritual teacher. She is a manifestation mastermind and creator. She's phenomenal. And I had the chance to have a conversation with her about how to manifest your reality or the reality that you want, how to change your beliefs, how to get out of energetic blocks. And when you're in a tough spot, I tell you what, this honestly for me, there's rarely moments when I'm doing interviews and podcast interviews where I'm kind of speechless because I'm trying to process what just happened. There was a few moments, and maybe even listen out for it. There's a few moments in this podcast where I literally did not even know what to ask because I was so just deep in the processing of what Cathy was saying. And I'm excited to have her on the podcast. She has got a new book which just got released, which is called Abundant Ever After. And it's got a whole bunch of tools for creating prosperity and ease in your life. And one of her big beliefs is that life doesn't have to be hard. So I'd recommend you to go and check that out. There will be a link in the show notes, or you can just buy it on anywhere that books are available. Abundant Ever After. And we're going to be diving deep into that book this episode and a whole bunch of other things. I trust you're going to enjoy this. Trust me, you are going to enjoy this. This is going to be so good. So let's get into the interview with Cathy Heller. Hey, it's Colin, and you are listening to the Expert Edge podcast. I was a professional speaker for over a decade, and now I focus on helping coaches, speakers, and course creators to speak and sell on virtual and live stages. The Expert Edge podcast is weekly content focused on helping you build your expert business. We cover marketing, storytelling, sales, communication skills, and so much more. Thanks for taking the time to tune in, and make sure you subscribe and follow us on all our social channels so you don't miss a thing. Let's listen to today's episode. Cathy Heller, welcome to the Expert Edge.
Thank you for having me. I was telling you earlier, I've just heard such beautiful things about you. I look forward to getting to sit and learn from you. So thank you for having me on your show. And then soon you'll be on mine.
It's so good. Can I just say, no one has ever started the podcast with a compliment. To me, that just speaks of who you are instantly. And it's so fascinating because we just jumped on a call, and I know that we're still just getting to know each other. We've got a lot of mutual friends. And instantly, as soon as I jumped on the call, I could feel your energy. And you started talking about the beautiful people that you had today. I said, how was your day? And you're like, I've just spent a beautiful day in Los Angeles. I'm just so blessed to have incredible people in my life. And I'm thinking, wow, this is just a little window into her mind. So I'm excited to have you on the Expert Edge and to expose you to my audience. Cathy, can you give us a little bit of context in terms of what you do and how you kind of got into the work that you do?
Yeah, first of all, that's extremely generous. That's so kind that you just poured all that love into me. Thank you. I receive it. It's so kind, and I send it back to you twice fold. I got into this work because I went on a journey. Some people go to India, they do their eat, pray, love moment, or they go to Bali. I went to Jerusalem after college. It was supposed to be a 3-week trip, and I met this amazing rabbi who became like Yoda on my Star Wars personal adventure. And the things coming out of his mouth were so beautiful, and they were changing the software program that I had known to be reality. So I just kept extending my trip, and I was completely blown away, and I fell in love with this world, and I fell in love with the one soul that we all share. And I just been on this incredible road of synchronicity since then. And I started a podcast 8 years ago after having some success as a songwriter. I was writing what I just said. I was writing that into song lyrics as my initial way of trying to put those ideas in the world. And those ideas actually landed. And so, Coca-Cola and Disney and Pepsi were like, what are these songs? They're like little, like really genuine confetti sort of messages, and we can hear the authenticity and this joy. And so then I was like making money writing these songs, and these songs were being licensed around the world. And I started a class at some point teaching songwriters how to do that. And then one of the songwriters said, why don't you start a podcast? And the first time I started the podcast, I called it Don't Keep Your Day Job. And it was about how everybody has a life's purpose. And instead of doing a mundane day job, you could actually get paid to be you if you actually tapped into your calling and you believed that you were really meant to do that work. You really could do that work. And so that's what the podcast started as. And then within 5 years, now it's been 8 years. So 5 years in, I said, you know what, we need to like break open, and we need to really start talking about high conscious sort of flow state and how we get into the place where we kind of let go of the little somebody suit and we move into this greater expansive aspect of ourselves, which is where all the magic really comes in, because the mind really is afraid. So it wants certainty. So it takes all possibility and collapse it into one possibility. But the soul is not afraid. So it can play in the space of the infinite, which means all possibilities exist, all potential. And I spend a lot of time in that space. And so I started teaching that. And people, at first I was like, are people going to like get this, Jewish mysticism, Kabbalah, what are they going to think about it? And then people were really thirsty for it. And I saw that it started to feel really authentic. And I do think that as we grow through our own journey, we're meant to keep having a metamorphosis, that there's no straight lines in nature, but we as people tend to hold on really tight to one identity. But what's so beautiful about fire is that it will scorch the earth and then regenerate the soil, and it will become something totally new and with more nutrients. And so I just continue to be available for whatever is the next iteration of the identity I'm supposed to sort of show up in. And I kind of trust my alignment, and I know when it's time to kind of move into the next thing. So the last 3 years, I started teaching people how they could take mindfulness tools and spiritual Jewish wisdom and combine them to kind of access the most sort of abundance. And so we started to really work on teaching people abundance and how to receive it. And it started to feel really mesmerizing to people. And I realized that there really is like a code. There's like a life code. And some of what I've been, practicing feels like it has the key to this code. And I think many of us have found the keys, but we don't always know how to put language to it. But I think a lot of this Jewish mysticism is a really old language that really says very new things. So that's what has called me to kind of write this book. I think there's a lot of unnecessary suffering. I think pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional. And I think we have this place in our soul that has equanimity and can be with things that are both really painful and really beautiful and heartbreaking and heart opening. And there's a wisdom and a well-being to sitting beside the river and not needing to make it something it isn't. And also, I think there's a tremendous amount of inherent abundance that we miss out on feeling and perceiving. And when we really know who we are, which is part of the oneness, right? My rabbi says we're each someone, we're some of the one. We're each a masterpiece, we're a piece of the master. When you really, really understand the oneness of reality, that there is just this one infinite intelligence, this sacred geometry, and you're a part of it. That's why when you sleep, you're tracking the circadian rhythm of the sun, moon, and stars. That's how connected we all are. When you really get that one infinite connection, you start to feel that abundance which exists in you, because the mind is always in lack and the heart is always in overflow. So you move into heart coherence, you start to become a master manifester, because we manifest that which we are. And so we don't get what we want, but we get what we are. And the more that we are in overflow, the more our whole life becomes in overflow. So I wanted to help people to find that plug so they could plug into the outlet. And I think all day long, people are looking and trying to plug into something outside themselves, when really the Wizard of Oz is inside your heart, and you have to plug into that. And then it kind of opens you up to what was always already here that you just couldn't see.
I feel like for me, I grew up and I feel like I had a lot of fear around, especially money, when I think about it. And it's funny because I teach people how to make money now, but a lot of the time, I guess that is the journey we go on, isn't it? It's like the challenges we went through. But when I think about it, it wasn't just about money, it was scarcity. It was just this fear of lack, this fear of scarcity. What does that look like to move from a mindset of scarcity and move into abundance? Like if someone gets stuck in that place of scarcity, and I'm thinking about, listeners who maybe they're running their coaching business, their course business, and they're not getting the momentum they want. They're freaking out. They're lying in bed at night. They're not sure how they're going to pay their bills, but they know they have this mission of where they want to go.
Yeah.
What are some of the philosophical ways or strategy ways that you've gone from getting out of scarcity and into abundance? What does that even look like?
Well, I think there's a few reasons that I hear over and over and over again, having coached thousands and thousands of people myself. And I'm sure you've heard some of these yourself because you've been in this space. There's a few similar themes that come up that keep us in scarcity. And I'll just touch on a few of them, maybe that will resonate. But one of the themes is that there's this feeling that the harder I work, the more money I make. So the more money I want to make, I'd have to work even harder. But the thing that's most controversial that I tell people is that life's not meant to be hard. It's actually meant to flow in. It's the opposite. And so when you're really cooking, you're in flow state. And that's when the song writes you. That's when you're not working in the business. You're just working on the business because your vision is so palpable. Everyone wants to be in the vision. They see the vision, and then you're making leaders around you. And that's what scales your business, is how far you see. So one of the scarcity issues people have is, well, there's only so much output I can do. So I can't make more money because I'd have to multiply my output by, no. It's in the potency of your resonance. It's in how much energy you bring into a space, and that will start printing for you more expansive, more abundance. And then, because anytime someone can scale something, right, it's going to be about you doing less actually, and the energy doing more. It's like throwing a little stone in the pond makes a small ripple, but you throw a big stone, you make a huge ripple. And so when your identity, the energy is the strategy, when what you put out there is like Eckhart Tolle energy, the reach is just huge, and he's not pushing, he's not hustling. It's coming from deep presence. So it's about slowing down to speed up. So that's number one. Another one is you can't have more of something you have a bad relationship with. A lot of people have an abusive relationship with money because they think money is the root of all evil. So they say they want it, but they feel ashamed of wanting it because they think it will make them bad. It couldn't be further from the truth. Money is a neutral resource. And the Talmud says that money is like rain falling in a garden. And if rain falls on weeds, weeds grow. If rain falls on roses, roses grow. So money is an activator. So if a person has no integrity and they get blessed with money, they're going to do more things out of integrity. They'll make themselves a deeper hole, a bigger hell with money. And if a person has a lot of integrity and they're blessed with money, they'll make their life even more beautiful and do more good things that they were doing before with money. That's why you could make a list right now of 10 people who are...
So true.
You can make a list of 10 horrible people who have money, and you can make a list of 10 amazing people who have money, and you can make a list of 10 amazing people who have no money, and you can make a list of 10 horrible people who have no money. It has nothing to do with the money, right?
So true.
The money is an amplifier. So that's another reason people block abundance. And then another reason people block abundance, especially women, is they're afraid of their power. So they're like, if I make more money and I go beyond 500K or $1 million or 5 million, what will be triggered? Will my husband be emasculated? Will I no longer fit in my family of origin because I've been trying to belong as opposed to being powerful? And the truth is, the last one I would say is when you're coaching, especially, people hit the wall in terms of clients sometimes because they are still holding for their clients. And the truth is that...
What does that mean? What does that mean? Tell me more.
So what I mean is the best coaches don't feel responsible to take on anything other than what's true, which is the best coaches, their job is fully seeing with certainty the power that lives inside your client. The best teachers are going to pull out of the student what's in there. They're not doing it for them. If you see Rick Macy, who's Serena Williams' coach, his job is to know like he knows that she's a beast. He's not going to make a step forward. He's going to demand it from her. So sometimes coaches get really codependent and they say, I can't take on any more clients. And it's like, what have you built in your practice? Because the best coach is going to say, I'm going to sit here and realize that you and I both know the same thing, which is my only job is to point. I'm a pointer. I'm going to keep pointing you towards who you are. And at some point, you'll decide to heal yourself and break through. That's it. Right. So a great coach and anybody who's great, like if you're, Yitzhak Perlman and you play the cello, not only can you play the cello for one person, you could play the cello for the whole stadium. You could play the cello for the whole world. And just like the sun gives everyone what it needs, you'd give everyone what they need because we give ourselves what we need. A doctor even doesn't heal a patient. A doctor helps create the conditions by which ultimately the patient and God decide, are they making the choice to heal, right? So we take on things that aren't ours. And then the last thing is we think that people won't like us if we're rich. But if you know that there is an abundance that is accessible to every soul, why would you deny yourself? We don't do that with physical health. We don't say, well, who am I to be healthy? Because people will be jealous that they can't. Would you tolerate having a headache every day because you think you're making somebody healthier down the street because you're not taking all the health? No. And then the whole point of my book, not only, I say a lot of these things in the book, but my whole point of the book is that abundance isn't a pile of cash. We have way bigger dreams than that. Our abundance is deep inner peace. Abundance is feeling so much love running through you that you know you are at the right place at the right time when you meet the bus driver and you have a great conversation because there's nowhere else you need to be. That's abundance. Abundance is knowing that you're assigned at every moment to be where you are, to be a vehicle for God's light. And so what are we even doing with money? We're putting it on a pedestal. Do you feel jealous of the person who has the most friends and the most love in their life? Or do you find yourself judging the person with the most money? Oh, you judge the person with the most money. Why? Because you felt like they had something that belonged to you and you were jealous. Were you jealous of the person who's been married for 48 years who has 8 great-grandchildren? Oh, no, you weren't. Oh, why? Because you devalued that. So who's the judgment about? It's about your brain and your ego that's constantly telling itself, I will be more abundant if I have more stuff outside of me to make me feel more whole, versus I'll feel abundant when I know how abundant my heart always is. And so we've done such a terrible job of morphing what's abundance, what's not, what we need. And because the brain is always in this place of scarcity and thinks that it needs money to finally make it feel like it's enough, there'll never be enough then, right? But the heart feels like it's enough when it's eating an apple sitting on a park bench and just being aware of the 47 shades of green in the park and looking at the beautiful people going by. And, that's a rich person in that moment. And it's not to say that you can't have all of it, because I really believe we live in a physical existence so that we can have a plentiful amount of money, a plentiful amount of love. And the last thing I'll say is that the amount of shame, because people don't realize we're one, it's one ecosystem. If you look at a garden, why would you want there to be weeds on a flower? Because eventually that's going to eat up the whole garden, right? If there was a meth addict who lived on my block, eventually this whole block is going to be affected by that. But if there's a woman at the end of the block who's 85 and she takes a walk every day with her dog and says hello to everybody, we're all also going to be affected by that, right? So we're a oneness. It's one. So if I open a store on Main Street, not only am I thriving, I just made business for anybody else who wants to open a store. If I paint my house and I upgrade my house and I redo it, immediately my neighbor's house just went up in value because I made my house more profitable. So abundance creates abundance, creates abundance. But when you think of yourself as separate, the last thing I'll say is that the ego does this math equation to decide how much it's worth. The soul is infinite. So from a place of being infinite, there's no one you couldn't love. You could love the whole world. You'd have enough in you. And from that same place of being able to give love to the whole world, you could receive an infinite amount of love. But the personality in our mind can't do that because it beats itself up and says, I'm only worth this much. I only have this much to give and I can only receive this much. But that's all coming from the mind. And by the way, there's no answers in the mind. All the answers are in the heart. So when we wake up and we're unconscious and we don't have a meditation practice, we don't have a prayer practice, we're not plugging into God, it's like a lamp not being plugged into the electricity. So from that standpoint, the lamp has no power, right? There's no power on. So that's what scarcity feels like. Scarcity is being disconnected from God, although you can never be disconnected, but you perceive as though you're just this one little satellite, right? And you're not. We're all in this one infinite field together all the time, affecting each other, whether we know it or not, all the time. And when one thing is thriving, it's giving life to the whole.
So it's kind of like, I know you mentioned you can't be disconnected from God, but it's like you're not consciously connected into that source.
Right. I mean, if you go to a concert, there's always a moment where people put up their lighters and you look around and you feel blissed out because there's this feeling of like oneness. Sometimes I've never done it, but sometimes people take mushrooms. The reason people tend to like that experience of psilocybin is because it quiets your amygdala and opens up your third eye. It creates serotonin. Serotonin opens the third eye. A person who's been meditating for a long time has that without the mushrooms. Okay. The reason why that feels so good is because you perceive yourself as you are, which is an energy connected to everything in energy. That's why you feel so good. Because what does that feel like? Wholeness. You don't feel lack. You feel whole. You feel connected to you, the trees. You don't see where you end and they begin. It's the best feeling. That's why people want to be on that. But I feel like I'm on that all the time because I see the world that way. I don't see the world through this lens of my brain that's not really giving me the right answers.
Firstly, that was like a masterclass on like connectivity to God and alignment, all that sort of stuff. So I'll definitely have a re-listen to that. I appreciate it. We have a lot of people, listeners who are driven, including myself. And to be honest, I didn't discover my drivenness until I felt like I discovered my purpose, which was kind of an interesting journey. But a lot of people are driven. They want to achieve something. They want to do something with their life. Sometimes there is a misunderstanding around meditation, being quiet, being connected, and actually getting stuff done. And can you help us to understand why that should be non-negotiable? Meditation, being quiet, when you're trying to be productive, you've got 20 things you've got to get done. You've got 5 podcasts you've got to record that day. You've got to do 3 team meetings. And then you've got to run a webinar the day after. Like, how do you find that balance? Even what does that look like for you? I'm really curious, just that listeners can look into your world and your mind.
Yeah. Well, first of all, something that's interesting, I want people to understand, especially for people like us that are driven, right? And when I say driven, I mean, that can mean a million things to a million people, but I see it as excitement, like just the feeling of wanting to build things and to create. To me, that's like how I was at 8 years old. I just wanted to keep building things and creating things. So I think that that's a beautiful thing. And when you hear that, and then someone suggests that you should sit still, it feels like the opposite.
Yeah.
But what I want people to understand is that when you nail it in a meditation, your brain waves go to gamma. And gamma is so fast that it's faster than the speed of light. And that's why you're slowing down, because you're actually speeding up. When you go into gamma, you're in pure consciousness, which is faster than this. It's beyond time, timeless. And where do we create? We create in consciousness. We don't create from matter. Energy creates matter. Matter doesn't create energy. So what looks like slowing down is actually speeding up, right? A way that we understand this is like when the person is having an orgasm, the mind is in gamma. That's why life is created from that place. That's how fast. That's also what the body is experiencing is gamma. So if you're doing Kundalini yoga and you get to the place where you move energy so much through you, your brain is having a similar pattern, which is why it feels like such an incredible release. That's what people are after when they're meditating, right? So why is that the portal to everything? Because that's where everything's created. Okay, so when a person's in flow state, if you're Jim Henson coming up with Kermit or you're Michelangelo painting the Sistine Chapel, you're in flow. And the reason we know you're in flow is because the brain likes to control things. So it's trying to predict and overthink. That actually slows you down. When your mind is thinking too much, you actually slow down. When your mind is thinking and telling you to do this and do that, and you go, oh my God, I'm feeling so stressed out. You literally are feeling stressed because those thoughts create cortisol in the body, which slows you down and makes you sick. It actually creates inflammation, which makes you more matter, makes you puffed up. and less energy. So you don't have as much speed on you, right? But the reason Phil Jackson had Michael Jordan meditating, he doesn't want him slowed down. He wants him sped up. So when you are in the mind and you're dripping cortisol into your physical being, you're slow. You're like molasses, which is why people who overthink can't get things done.
Analytical, so true.
Yeah. But if
so
you take a kindergartner, if you take a 5-year-old, they'll be in flow. They'll just move right into flow. Their brain waves will be in gamma and they will just have fun because everything's a surprise. See, the brain wants to predict the outcome, which means it's already lost the whole battle because it's moving from probability. The conscious part of you moves into possibility, where all possibilities exist. So why would you want to live out your day from probability? That would just be you looking at evidence from the past and projecting on today what's probable. But anyone who did anything amazing, whether you're Walt Disney or Elon Musk or Steve Jobs, you're not at all concerned with probability. All you're thinking is about is possibility. So that's why you want to meditate. What I do specifically is I will either do a meditation where I am aware of myself as nobody, nowhere, and no time, just a consciousness that's floating in the beautiful universe of consciousness and just let go of the Cathy Heller avatar. Or I will get on the treadmill, and when my kids leave for school, literally for a mile on the treadmill going fast, I'll just be talking out loud to God, literally just talking without planning, just talking. And then the second mile, I'll just be listening and I'll just say, what do I need to know? And it is unbelievable how there's just like a wisdom that's like right there. Like, here's what you need to know. Let go, surrender, be in the present, call this person, blah, 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 blah. So that meeting with yourself every day has to be sacrosanct.
I'm just like taking all this in. This is so good. One thing that I'm really enjoying is breath work. The level of joy that you feel in your body is just phenomenal. Like, and I find that it doesn't happen until you get to a certain level in the breath work. And is that what's happening kind of in your brain? Like you're hitting that gamma state, and what is that?
100%. Because what you do is you just finally release. See, most of the time on a somatic level, we're carrying such old garbage in our bodies because we haven't processed things that we felt, trauma, little t trauma, big things, whatever it is. And so the body is so slowed down. It's so exhausted. The nervous system is so dysregulated. And then it's like running on a broken ankle. Then you give it more deadlines and tell it to do more, and it can't create. It's just depleted. It's just like trying to harvest from the ground and there's nothing nutritious in the ground. You're just going to get the most disgusting plants. Like there's nothing it can produce anymore. When you do breath work, just like meditation, what you're doing is you're moving the energy that's stuck in the body, and you are opening your heart so wide and moving oxygen through your body and through your brain, which allows you to perceive and let go and start to feel what's in the infinite field. It's like the antenna clicks on and you get beyond this fog. It's like the fog lifts. And all of a sudden, you're just feeling this feeling of relief and liberation and oneness and trust and deep, deep equanimity. It's amazing. And to not have that going on in your life, you're missing out on feeling what it feels like to be you, let alone feeling what it feels like to be in a state of joy. It's amazing. I'm so happy you've been having that experience.
Well, let me ask you this around energy, because I know that, when you walk into a room, you just feel someone's energy.
Yeah.
Like it's just instantly there, and probably even before they even get in the room. What does it look like to energetically grow? Because I know for me, in my personal development journey, I've had to energetically, belief-wise, all that sort of stuff, work on myself. Now, it sounds kind of weird, but it happens to me a lot. I'll be walking down the street and someone will pull me up and say, do I know you? I feel like I know who you are. Yeah. And I mean, I don't know if they've seen a Facebook ad or not, but these are just random people. They're like, I got pulled over. I was in Newport Beach just recently, and someone grabbed me and he thought I was some famous footballer. And I mean, I don't even watch NFL. And he wanted to take a photo with me. But it was kind of odd that I feel like this happens a lot. Like people say, like, I feel like I know you. And now I don't know what that is, but I feel like that has started to happen more and more as I've worked on my energy and things like that. Like
totally. Well, I mean, we're all really a hologram right? And people don't really see us, they see aspects of themselves, right? Which is why you could set somebody up with your best friend, and if she hates men, she's going to be like, he's this, he's that. You're like, no, he's so sweet, but she sees what she wants to see. But if somebody has really loving, open-hearted, clean energy, other people might start to perceive their open heart. It becomes activated. It's kind of like, when you turn on Wi-Fi and everyone can plug their phone into that Wi-Fi router. When you are coming from this, like the Dalai Lama, right? Let's just use him as an example because people know what he looks like. You could picture him. If he were to walk into, the Department of Motor Vehicles, the DMV, which is like nobody wants to go there.
I was in there like a month ago.
Right?
So good.
It's like the worst, but he would make everybody smile because his energy is so deeply beautiful and at peace. And there's so much love and openness there that other people will start to feel what's also in them because his energy shows up in the space. So I think when people say that to you, they're recognizing an aspect of their soul in you, and there's something very accessible and loving and awake. But the question you asked at the beginning of what you just said, which is such a good question, I think it's the only question, is how do we do that energetic work? Because our energy is the wand, the wizard's wand that actually bends the 3D reality. So if you're not working that muscle, it doesn't matter. People say to me, well, what should I do? A podcast? Should I use email? I'm like, it's what's coming through the podcast, right? It's the energetic resonance. And so, my rabbi explained it to me in the most beautiful way. He said, the world works like a radio. If you turn on a radio, you'll hear music, but then you get to choose which station you hear. And the radio will hear different music based upon where it's tuned. So you are a radio. And if you're tuned to love and gratitude and you just feel so in love with life, life's going to love you right back. Your life is going to turn into abundance. But if you're tuned to scarcity and lack and doubt and striving and proving and sadness, then you're going to just keep perceiving that. You're going to keep creating that drama. Every possibility exists in the quantum field. It's all hidden in plain sight. If I turned on a radio, you could ask the question, where was the music before you turned on the radio? The music's in the room. You just can't hear it because the radio's not on. You didn't turn it on. But when you turn on your signal, you're going to start getting opportunities and people just want to be near you, and the synchronicity just happens. It's just unbelievable. So then the question is, we got to check in and become conscious of where we've been unconscious. Like, where's your energy? Where's your vibration? Where's your focus? What are you feeling? What are you thinking? What are you emitting? When you walk in a room, people hear your thoughts. They might not know exactly what you're thinking, but they get the gist because it's written all over your energetic vibe, right? We feel it. When somebody walks in a room and they're loving, they make everyone else feel impressive. So they're the most impressive person. When someone walks in a room and they have equanimity, then they're authentic. They don't have shame. They can just be themselves and they make everybody else feel relaxed. But when someone walks in the room and they're coming from scarcity and they're trying to prove themselves to you, it doesn't matter what car they drove. It doesn't matter where they went to college. You're just not impressed. You're like, this person is in scarcity. They're trying to get me to validate them. They don't validate themselves. And it makes everyone feel uncomfortable. So when we create this coherent, beautiful energy inside of us, first of all, we're the recipient of that. Because the truth is, I say to people, what do you want to create? They're like, I want abundance. I want $10 million. I want a big house. I'm like, great. Why? Well, you're chasing a feeling. It's how you want to feel. Well, guess what? Why don't you just feel that way right now? Oh, I can't. You can't? You need this to happen to feel that? No, you don't. You choose how you feel. Why don't you choose to feel free right now? Why don't you choose to feel abundance? What would abundance feel like? What would ease feel like? And then if you really think about that, you realize, oh, I've thought my whole life that I'm only allowed to feel those feelings when something external happens to me. Now,
Gosh, can I just press pause there? That is so massive. That is so massive that we've been conditioned to only allow ourselves to feel a certain way when something external happens. That's so massive. And so for someone to kind of manifest something, to create something in their life, talk to me about your kind of process, your philosophy. Does it come from accessing that place internally first and then it gets created?
Yeah. I mean, first of all, here's the thing. We all know that we don't create from lack. We create from wholeness. So when you're externalizing something, you're just going to keep pushing it away. You're not going to create it, right? But when you have it, you'll create it, because you don't get what you want, you get what you are. You get a resonant match to what you already are. That's how it works. So if you don't feel whole and you keep thinking the relationship will make you feel whole, you will be the worst person to date. And then you'll realize it's a gift that you never dated from that place, because that would have been a horrible relationship. That would have been completely codependent. But if you go on a date and you feel like you're in love with life itself, everyone will want to date you. It'll be a yes, right? If you walk in a room and instead of trying so hard to get the job, you're just there in the moment, seeing the sunlight, talking to the secretary, you'll probably get the job, but you won't need it. So then what are you really trying to manifest? You're trying to manifest how you think you'll feel once you get the thing. But if you feel that way now, then what do you need? You need nothing. And then you surrender what you thought you needed, which means you already got it. And then everything else comes to you because you already have it, because you are whole. I'll tell you a great example of this.
That's good.
So every time I do anything, I'm just enjoying the doing of it, because that's the magic, right? I started a podcast and I'm like, oh my God, it's so fun to do it. Everyone's like, well, aren't you trying to get downloads? I'm like, no, I'm just enjoying doing it, because that's what I'm in it for. I really want to feel good now. I'm way too impatient to make my whole life be about feeling good when something happens. I want to feel good now. And so I'm enjoying learning from people. I'm enjoying finding, my capacity to do new things. So finally, after a year of doing the podcast, somebody tells me I need to go to Podcast Movement. So I go to Podcast Movement. I'm walking around the lobby with all these other podcasters, and everybody seemed like an alien to me, because everybody walks in there with a mission, an agenda. Right. And I said to my friend, what's the agenda? And she said, oh, they're all trying to network. I said, what are the networking going to do? She's like, they want to meet the head of Apple Podcasts. If you meet the head of Apple Podcasts, maybe you'll get featured in the new and noteworthy section. I'm like, I didn't bring business cards. I'm just here to experience, whatever the actual content is. So I say, I'm going to come back after the networking event. So I leave. I go to a different hotel in Anaheim across the street, 2 blocks away. I walk in, order an iced tea, happy, relax. All of